Hey everyone, Karen the Warp Spinster here. Welcome to my channel and thank you for joining me today. It's always nice to sew with friends. I appreciate it. Today I want to wonkify an old block that's called Twin Sisters. And it's been around, I don't know, for at least 150 years maybe. I forget when Barbara Brackman found it. It was originally done with templates, and I will put a link to Barbara Brackman's blog post that describes how to do it with templates. And Eleanor Burns, of course, found an easier way to do it, and I will also link down to her video for how she does it using 2.5-inch strips. It really is a lot of fun to make. I've made a couple of them a long time ago, and they're quick and easy. So basically, you make strip sets and then cut them into squares and cut them diagonally. So you, for more detail, see Eleanor Burns. So you end up with two different triangles, one that is predominantly one print and one that is predominantly the other. So you actually get two blocks out of each one. So you put all of them that are predominantly one print in one pile and the rest in the other. And then you put them together with this right angle in the center. And you have a cute little swirly block. This would probably be better if I had higher contrast, but you get the concept of what we're doing. And then this one would be with the white as the dominant color or print in this case. So you get positive, negative, as Eleanor calls it. So truly do check that out. It is a great way to use scraps and jelly roll strips if you're doing it Eleanor's way. All right, so this is what we're aiming for, and if we do a takeoff of Eleanor's, I really like these in that combination. Wish I had more contrast here. Anyway, I want to do a variation of it, and you know, I'm thinking of if you did, no, I guess that wouldn't work, would it? I'm just trying to think. You could do a larger square, cut it in half diagonally so you get this piece, and then you do a sew and flip there. That might be more trouble than it's worth, but then you could really make it wonky off in that corner. Now, we'll see how this goes, because making it wonky could end up really hiding this part of the pattern if we make things too wonky. So we'll see. As usual, I have no idea how this is going to turn out. We are exploring together. So first thing I'm going to do, if we do a takeoff of Eleanor's method, then I would want two different strips, but I would want probably different widths. So the secret is once you do the strip sets that you cut it into squares. So however wide your strip set is, you subcut the strip set with that. So if we do, it might even be kind of fun to do a curvy sort of thing, wouldn't it? I really like this block a lot. I gave a quilt top that I made to a friend of mine to quilt and use as a in a raffle. Boy, I didn't cut that very well, did I? And it reminded me how much I really like this block, and it goes together really quickly. All right, enough waxing eloquent. So I am going to see if I can dig up some strips, and you know, I wouldn't even have to have, would be the same fabrics, but it doesn't necessarily have to be long strips because we're working with scraps. I'm just thinking here. just a thinking, if we, no, it's not going to work. I can tell right now it's not going to work, but doggone it, I want it to. Okay. All right, so I am going to dig up some strips that are different widths. And if I want to accentuate this, we are at some point, you can see here, if we want to do the twin block, then if we make this too narrow, well, we'll see what happens. I mean, that's what we're here for, right? So I am going to dig up a couple of strips and we'll see what we can do. Maybe we'll make some smaller blocks, which will happen naturally if we use narrower strips. So let me see what I have for strips. Let's start there. Here are a couple of strips I pulled from my strip bag, and you can see they're just about the same width, which I will probably change, and this one kind of tapers down. So what I want to do actually is try out the whole curved seam concept. Now, it may be that there isn't going to be enough curve to make a difference once we cut it, but what the heck, right? So we'll find my glove, my klutz glove, and I'll have to see if I can do this pretty well. I can't really see what's underneath. All right, so we're going to start here. And these are going to be gentle curves, a gentle curve, a couple of gentle curves. And as I say, once all is said and done, this may not be enough of a curve to make a difference, but we're going to give it a try, and then we're going to have uneven widths of these two strips as well. So we'll see if we can do a very unscientific double test. Not a double blind test, but all right, so I'm going to stitch that. The gentle curves won't be difficult at all. It is such a gentle curve so as to be pretty much irrelevant. But hey, next time we might do a steeper curve. Now, I want to make one strip fairly narrow. This one is already pretty narrow, so I think I'll make this a little more narrow. Trim it off a bit. Right now it's at this strip, the black and white strip, is quite actually uneven, but that's all right. We might use that to our advantage, that it's not going to be quite even. It will help us to wonkify things. And a little bit here I can save. Now, what I need to do is determine the width of this strip set. I really am going to have to trim that a little bit. Although we could, see what happens if we, all of this is assuming that we want to do a square block in the end. And we may not. As we're playing, we may decide that we don't really need it to be square. So this is coming out to 3.5-ish. So 3/8. I could take it down to 3.25. Now they're starting to look like the same size, aren't they? Ah, the best laid plans. I'm taking it down to 3.25. Probably not going to make any difference at all, but here we are. I want there to be enough of a difference that we can tell. Can we? No? How sad is this? I'm going to take it down to probably, let's see, Now we'll leave it at this because we're going to lose so much in the cutting that we may end up with stuff getting lost in the seams. What did I say? 3 1/4. All right. So I'm going to cut 3 1/4 inch squares out of this. And it's a relief that I have enough to cut 4 squares. So we need 4 quarters. So now I'm going to lay these out, and I need to make sure that I always cut the same direction. So I'm going from, I've got the stripe on the bottom, and I'm always going from lower left to upper right. And that's the thing about swirling, twirling things. You have to make sure that you're consistent in how you cut things. I learned my lesson on that early on, and it is a good thing to still keep in mind. All right, so now we take those that are more striped than pink, and this one's going to be pretty wild, I think. So there isn't a lot of difference between this and the traditional block because it's kind of fun though, isn't it? Maybe a little googly on your eyes on camera. And then here it is with predominantly pink. Oh, these could work in Alice, couldn't they? Didn't think about that. It's a little different pink than we use in Alice, but what the heck. All right, so there's not a lot of difference there. Changing the size will, of course, change the size of the windmill piece here. And this has, you can barely see a curve there. So it's not wonkifying it much, is it? So another thing I have in mind is what if we do like a solid strip like this, or the same, a strip that's all the same, but then we do a couple of narrower strips for the other strip and treat those as one strip but a little scrappy. And they don't have to be straight, they can be sort of very long triangles. So let's see what we can find in my strip sets. I have a couple of narrow yellow strips here. They're pretty close, and I'm not sure, I don't want more contrast there. But let's give it a try. It's only thread in time, right? So I'm going to go through the process of sewing all of this together and cutting the squares, and then we'll come back. You don't have to watch that process all over again. It probably doesn't surprise you that I had to sneak in a narrow, sort of uneven band of black and white stripe. So I'm ready to, I will go ahead and cut these and we'll see how they're going to look. It's going to look, I guess, quite similar. You'll be able to tell it's a Twin Sisters block for sure. But I want to see how this variety of stripes, we've made our own stripe. This is getting pretty narrow down there. And once it's sewed together, we might lose it to the seam. Which is the concern about doing a very narrow and very wide strip. I could, of course, do a larger block where that would be less of a problem. All right, Karen. Right angles to the center. Well, that's kind of fun. If there had been more contrast here, it could have been maybe even more fun. I don't know. But I like, this would be great in an Alice block. I have Alice on the mind, can you tell? If we had reds and pinks in there instead. Now this, I fear, really is going to has some stuff lost in the seams, because that's pretty narrow, so we could end up losing some of this yellow stripe in the seam. So lesson learned there. I'm still trying to figure out how we might do some wonky. I love these, but is there another way we could wonkify it? So what I'm going to do is take a square, cut it into 4 diagonally so that I've got these 4 triangles. And then I'm going to try just putting some wonky pieces there, maybe some right triangles or something, and lay them across or so and flip across there and see what happens. I keep wanting to try that. Maybe I just need to try it and find out that either it does work or it's a sublime failure. We'll find out. Let me cut a square. Let's try an Alice-y thing, because Alice decided to use this red and pink and white print. I have put this block up here for reference because I'm going to have to be careful in which corner I place the contrasting pieces. I can't just, it would be lovely if we could just have this square, do a sew and flip here, and then just use that, but because of that whole swirly thing, trust me, won't work. Tried it, not happening. Okay, so I have, for example, this triangle left over from something that I can put in one corner. I could take one of these and I'll slap it in a corner. There's going to be quite a bit of loss there, but such is life. I won't have to put them at the correct angle, any of that. Yes, I do, because, all right, so this one wants to be, well, not necessarily. I could do this, that's part of the wonkiness. Maybe I want to do that though. And flip it up wherever. Again, I'm going to have some waste there, but I've got lots of these 2.5 inch squares. So I'm going to start, and I have to make sure I'm going to cover that tip over here. So I will audition where I want that to go. And then I'm going to do pretty much the same thing with the rest of these corners. And we shall see what happens from there. Maybe I'll do that. So again, I'm paying attention to which corner I'm putting this in. This one's going here and that one's going there. Okay, I think I've got it. I will sew those and come back and we'll see how that goes. All right, I have 3 of these sewn on and trimmed. It's very easy to just flip it over and trim it here. You can go back in and trim this off if you like, if you want to avoid the bulk or possibly some bleed through. Or, oops, trimmed off the wrong one, don't do that. Leave it there for stability. I will re-sew that one so it doesn't look quite so bad. On this one, I opted, instead of a square, I wanted a longer strip because I wanted it to go down there. I wanted it to be a really long, narrow one. So I'm going to trim that. And then we have one with a very long, narrow. Oops. If you do it this way, then you'll notice that if you have a print, it's going to line up, but it won't once these are all stitched together. All right, so I'm going to fix this one, and then we'll come back and take a look and maybe think about some other things. All right, let's take a minute to evaluate this. This is not my favorite wonkifying I've ever done. It If you make these wonky, then it loses the effect that you get here. And this is too light. There needs to be more contrast. These are not so bad, but I would replace those. In fact, I might do that and come back, because without that high contrast, you really lose this pinwheel effect. So I will, even if I squint and take that into account, I'm not sure I like that, but I am going to swap these out with something else that's more contrast, less white, and then I'll come back and we'll think about a couple other things. Well, that's better, but it still doesn't have quite the effect that this has if it's even. Now, we don't have to have it look like a Twin Sisters block. We often end up with blocks that don't look like the original inspiration. I'm wondering if I were to, say, make these not so square there, or not have the points squared off. I thought that might be something interesting, but I think it just kind of muddies the water, doesn't it? The other thing I thought about was inserting some strips. What if we, wow, do we want to do that? If we sewed these together and then further made another pinwheel with strips going through there. Maybe some red strips. I think I'm going to try that. I will sew these together and then we'll try it. Here's the finished block. It really needs something. I don't know what, but it really needs something. Too much of this and not enough of the contrast maybe, so we're here to try things out, aren't we? So I'm just gonna cut this baby up the middle and insert a strip of something, which might be red or pink. I think I'll start with a red. It's kind of interesting blocks right there. But we're going to do a red. Yes, there's a part of me that really wants to put a stripe in there. But, you know, maybe I ought to think about something else besides black and white stripes. Or should I? Oh, here's an idea. What if I had black and white stripe in the middle? I'll find a piece that isn't attached to something else. And then I had, say, red at the ends here, and do one here with pink at the ends. Is that going to be too much stripe? Maybe I'll do it with this one, see what I think of it, and maybe that's enough to... This is not going to be a Twin Sisters block. No biggie. We'll just invent our own. I wasn't aiming for a diagonal stripe, but that's the strip scrap that I had, so here we are. Now, I could either, because I have a little leeway on the red, I could either put that strip centered. And let's make it a little more like actual width it will be after we put in the seams. Is that going to do anything for us or not? What if we had plain red or plain pink going through there? Let me look in my sash. right. Couldn't pull any off. Scrap. Well, that's not going to help much. You see too much pink that way. It would be something, kind of break it up a little bit. Where we have bright red. Just plain red. I'm thinking we may need that more than this stripe in the middle. I think that stripe is too distracting, so I think I will go for a red strip down the middle and see how that goes. I think I want it to be maybe a 1/4 inch wide, so I'll cut the strip 3/4. Yep, all right, 3/4 inch strips going in between. Here is our finished kind of wonky, kind of twin sisters block. Not crazy about it, if I'm honest with you. It will be fine in Alice with all of the chaos. It might work better if I had another strip across here, because if you see in the center, it looks like things aren't meeting correctly, but that's just because that was added in there. If it had been an inch wide strip instead of 3/4 inch, it would have been fine, because we'd just be replacing what we took out with seams. Anyway, so that's our experiment for today. Not crazy about this one, but I do like this one a lot, where you add in some extra strips. I like that one a lot, and you know, I like the ones I did originally here, which are just, oops, let me zoom out here. And I think this one is a really neat one too. This is just the standard traditional twin sisters block, which is very nice. I will put all of these together that we've sort of played with and post them in a photo at the end. Really, as I've been sewing these together, I wanted to just show you one little tip that you may or may not already know. I've been pressing to one side, and in this case, I'm pressing toward the side of the seam that doesn't already have a seam, so that I'm not folding bulk on top of bulk. And then when I sew the seams together, one is turned that way and one is turned this way, so they butt up against each other. That presents a problem when you get to pressing this final seam, because you've got all this bulk in the center. And one way to take care of that is to just release the thread that is holding those initial seams together. Looks like this one's pretty well released. And then you can fold one seam, one more thread there. So you can see that I'm pressing this seam that way, this seam this way, and then I've got this little tiny 4 patch in the center where I have split those two seams apart. So that's just a little tip. Now, I think that's going to be it for today. I will finish putting these all together and post a photo. I don't have any plans specific yet for next week. We'll see what happens at some point. I am going to have to take a break when I run out of ideas, but we'll see what happens next week. I hope to see you then. In the meantime, be well, be safe, be happy, be quilting. Peace out. Thanks for joining me.